Hello everyone, it's Oliver Harper here. For this spoiler discussion podcast on The Predator, I'm joined by Mr. H Reviews. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, good, good, very good, thank you.
Excellent. And also Rossatron is here with us. How are you doing, Ross?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Oliver. Thanks for
Mar-
having me.
Marvellous, marvellous. Now, all of us have discussed The Predator the past week or so. Mr. H Reviews has covered its production issues and chatted about it at great length on his channel. And discussing it again for my channel, he may be getting a bit burnt out on The Predator. Ross just recently discussed his feelings on all of the Predator films, including the AVP series with his latest video, which I highly recommend everyone check out. I think Mr. H and Rossatron see the movie in a more positive light than I do, but let's have a quick chat about its pros and cons in a non-spoiler capacity before we go into more detail. Now, my review was basically I gave it 2.5 out of 5. You know, the movie.
Oh,
So, it's a bit harsh, wasn't it? The
I mean,
I wasn't annoyed by it. I was just disappointed by it. It was, the glaring kind of editing issues and its structure. I really enjoyed the characters within it, but the movie has a major problem with pacing and giving the story time to breathe. It moves along so quickly that it doesn't actually feel like a Shane Black movie. Now, there is moments of comedy within it, which is classic Shane Black, but some of the gags just didn't work down to the comedy timing, which is a result of the editing. Obviously, I praised some of its visual effects. I think some people kind of went a bit apeshit in the comments on my review was that like the new Predator, the sort of giant one, looked a bit crap in places. And granted, he's a bit ropey in certain areas. I think down to the sort of hasty changes at the last minute. But I enjoyed that they threw in the Alan Silvestri score. If you took away that music and those themes, it wouldn't be Predator anymore. It's the argument I always say with people: when you take away John Williams' Superman theme, it's no longer Superman. So Mr. H, I know you're a big fan of the Predator franchise and managed to see an early screening. Did it live up to your expectations, and did the obvious last minute editing bother you? Because you gave it a very strong review despite pointing out some of its flaws. Did your viewers feel you were slightly biased or generally fair on the movie?
so what? So that so that there seems to be some miscommunication somewhere along the line. So as much as I say that I enjoyed 90% of it, I out and out state that the ending and this is non-spoilers, but the ending absolutely ruined it for me. And regardless of whether I enjoyed it, just because I did enjoy it, like it was fun. It's not a good movie. Like it's not a good Predator movie at all. It's for me, it's a difficult one because I've got the leaked script. I have covered it for so long, and I know exactly what they've cut out. So you're talking about the pacing issues. I know exactly what's been removed from this film. And in terms of did it live up to my expectations? I mean, it exceeded my expectations because I initially absolutely slammed this. I did like I think it was maybe even 15-minute long video where I just said the movie's going to be complete garbage. I listed my reasons why. I wasn't just needlessly hating. I stated all of the production, the delays, the reshoots, the last minute reshoots, so on and so forth. And then also Shane Black going completely quiet and, announcements coming out from bloody Fred Decker as opposed to the director of the movie and all this nonsense. So I went into it initially, when the first trailers were released and things like that, hating it. It was the last trailer that got me excited. That was it. It was the last trailer that I looked at and I went, this looks somewhat like my cup of tea. And then I went into it and it was fun. I enjoyed it. But the ending absolutely ruined it for me. And yeah, I mean, I think I sounded a bit more positive in my review than I perhaps should have done because, or maybe just should have clarified. Look, it's the internet, so people just pick apart everything you say anyway. Because hey, we're on the internet. But it's not a good movie. Like it's a chopped up piece of crap. Like I compared it to The Thing, and a lot of people jumped on me and said, "Oh, you hate The Thing," and I said, "No. I compared it to The Creature. It's an amalgamation of ideas that just became a monster. And you can feel it. You can feel the pacing is all ropey. You can feel it's light. Things are implied rather than explained. Characters just disappear and not explained. So yeah, there you go. That's my thoughts, I guess.
Right, now, Ross, with you being a professional editor, do you think its overall structure and pacing was a bit messy for a big franchise picture? We've seen Fox hack their movies to bits in the past, such as Fantastic Four and probably Kingdom of Heaven. Also, do you think it's less of a Shane Black movie and more of a studio control picture? Because I think overall you're quite entertained by the movie and was keen to see it again. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I would say I echo some of what Mr. H is saying, where nowadays you can either love or you can hate something, but there isn't really a middle ground. Apparently, like I said in my review, I felt that I was 50% negative, 50% positive about the film, but I've been ripped apart for praising it too much, which to me is mad, because it's not that bad. It's really not that bad. It's not the end of cinema. It's not the end of Predator. Like, it survived AVP Requiem. It'll survive this if they wanted to. I think that it's chopped up and it's done poorly, and it has a weird storied history that a lot of films don't have. But in terms of, I think, hacking up a movie like this and putting it back together, I mean, I come from a background of being a bit, somewhat privy to some of these things, but, it's a surprising amount of films these days that do really well, that they have the same journey to the screen. They just don't have... They usually have a bit more money, is the way I see it. So it's rare that we even get a mid-budget movie like this that costs about, I think it costs like 90 million, 80 million. It's rare that we get those kind of movies anymore and then have that much studio interference with them. They're usually 30 million and then go up to like 150 million. This is kind of an odd beast anyway. So that it's harder for them to actually make those edits work is kind of the way I saw it. Like, they don't have as much time to set everything back up, get everyone there, people disappearing. It wouldn't surprise me if perhaps some of that was because they literally couldn't get them anymore. They couldn't afford to bring them back. And it's a shame. Like, I said this on my channel in the comments and stuff. It's a shame that I think that what would have been made by Shane Black, which I actually made sure that I didn't have any, and I still haven't really looked into too much. I know that there was meant to be some, like, I don't know if I can talk about it, but yet in the podcast, but stuff that's in the would have been there that's not, and I'm not sure that would have been great, but I think it would have at least felt a bit more of a cohesive product. Whether it would have been good or bad or not, it would have felt like it was Shane Black's movie. It might not have felt like a Shane Black movie. It would have felt like his. So then, to the answer to the question of is it a Shane Black movie, it feels like one sometimes, but you can feel that studio interference pretty strongly in the film, and I simply think that that's the main thing people are latching onto, but then at the same time latching onto how it would have been. And there's like this weird place where the film doesn't seem to exist in anywhere where it was ever going to be received well by anyone particularly. So it either just shouldn't have been made, or we should look at it as it's a shame we didn't get to see what they wanted to do. And sadly, because the film's now done poorly, but because of all that negative feedback that existed before, I can see the studio blaming what happened before rather than their own meddling for why it's like this, and it will happen again. We'll get less crazy, gory, weird movies like this made for that kind of budget where they can actually go a bit nuts and a bit weird, which is a shame to me, regardless of how much I like the film or not.
Because it's interesting that, with Mr. H, you said about the trailers, because I felt the same, because I think most people, when they saw the first two theatrical trailers, they were like, what is this? This looks a bit weird. It's got the setting of a town. It feels like Alien vs Predator 2. And then obviously with the last one they did, they actually, pulled it out of the bag and, made it work. Obviously put a lot of funding into that one. But the film itself, as Ross was saying, in terms of its budget, it's a very expensive movie for a Predator film, pushing just over 80 million. And then look at Predators, which is like half the budget. I mean, 1 and 2, I mean, they're probably pricey, relatively pricey for the time, but in terms of inflation, things like that. But it surprised me that Fox would put this large amount of money into it. Maybe down to the faith that Shane Black was attached. But he had, his last big hit was Iron Man 3, and The Nice Guys unfortunately wasn't, which is a shame, because that's a film I'd love to see a sequel to. So it's maybe they'd thought that the original idea for this was it was going to be something special, and you've got Shane Black in it. directing it, who was in the original film. So they put a lot of faith into it. But obviously, once the script was leaked, because someone else had kind of told me about the script, and they said it was like a really strange story. It didn't feel like
awful.
It's awful. So was that awful script pretty much, translated to film, what we've seen, or is this like the third or fourth revision, do you think?
So it's interesting that I think you both have pointed out that there's bad pacing issues in editing it and things like that, and it's the reason why I don't think the official budget has actually been revealed yet, but the reason why the budget has been rumored to be so high is because of the reshoots. They rewrote the entire. It's come out that it was the third act. It wasn't. It was part of the second act as well. So they have changed essentially the entire main narrative of this film to something completely different. And they've taken out key elements and had to retrofit new things in, like the pods, for instance. Again, like non-spoilers and all this kind of stuff, but the pods, for instance, and what's on the ship, the things that you saw in the trailers, and Boyd Holbrook looking up at the sky at the end of one of the other trailers saying, come and get us. All of this was the original material. And what they've had to hack out is, and change it around to something, which is what you get. And it's amazing that the pacing is so bad. It's a 2-hour movie. The reason it's so bad is because the fact that they've had to retrofit a new story into an already quite elaborate story. And because the script is very elaborate. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of moving parts. And I think that's why the pacing is just so off, just so bad.
It's just got too many storylines running, causes a bit of a bugger's muddle, as it were.
Well, I mean, do you want me to tell you what? Can we go into spoilers, or?
Yeah, let's discuss spoilers now. Mr. H, what do you want to say on the script?
Right. Well, did you guys get a sense? Right, throughout the film, you get a sense that there's that pod, right, and there's something there. What's in the pod? There's dramatic music, and the camera pans on it in a very dramatic way and quite looming. The pod is there as this looming presence, right? Did you get that at all?
Yeah, you can tell that there's meant to be something that's not. You don't feel what you get at the end of the film is what you're going to get. But it's not a great surprise. I kind of know, I think, what they were meant to do, but I'll let you.
Yeah. So the reason there was this looming atmosphere based around the pods was because there was supposed to be hybrid predator creatures inside a lot of pods. It wasn't just going to be one. The pods were never intended as a gift. The pods were a weapon used by the upgrade, the ultimate predator. So that's why you get this sense of looming atmosphere, not, it's a gift. That's why it feels so bizarre. And initially, the main chase and the main hunt and what they really, really wanted to get was that it's the device which the kid gets and is playing around with in the first trailer. That's it was basically a device which unlocked the secrets to hybridization, right? So that was the main plot. That was the main drive. That's what they wanted to get, and that's what the fugitive had stolen. The friendly-ish predator that was murdering everyone. He had stolen it, and Sterling K. Brown's character wanted to get it because he wanted to hybridize, sell it off basically to the highest bidder and all that kind of crap. And basically there's this predator civil war, and we had friendly predators living on Earth. Yeah, I'm not lying. Friendly predators living on Earth on a government base behind plexiglass.
Well, that's in the trailer, isn't it? Or the early shots we saw was when those.
It's in the leaked photos, yeah, where everyone said, "Nah, it's bollocks. You're talking crap." No. They're just messing around. No. They were friendly predators, and they were let out at night to go hunting in a private game reserve, and that's they're dissident predators, basically. Yes. Honestly, that was part of the second act. Basically, it was that, and then going into the third act. The film initially ended when they killed the upgrade predator. That was it. That was the end. They looked up at the sky and they said, come and get us, motherfuckers, because there was an invasion of predators. That was it. That was the story. And
Oh.
they tacked on all this other crap, and they had to retrofit the pods into something else and cut out the friendly predators, so they accentuated more stuff. Sterling K. Brown was never going to kill himself. He was going to get shot by another government official.
Hmm.
So it's
Interesting.
all, that's why his death was just completely immediate and thrown away. It's
Mm.
just anyway. There you go.
Because with Shane Black and Fred Dekker sort of writing it, I think they did do a good attempt to sort of expand the Predator universe. I mean, they gave the Predator, who was captured at the beginning of the movie, kind of more of a personality because he's got the human DNA inside him. But also the discussion on why they take the skull and spine from their victims,
Oh,
using sort of, it was like using the sort of DNA to sort of enhance the Predator warriors to create these sort of ultimate hunter. I thought it was kind of a neat idea, but it felt like these
it's a neat
ideas were,
idea.
I thought the ideas were coming from like the Dark Horse comics. I mean, and maybe they've kind of already dabbled in that in the past.
It would
Um,
have worked, I think, as a comic or something like that. Like
hmm,
it felt like that kind of plot was the way it seemed to me. Although I am a bit surprised that people are being so kind of against certain elements of it because, Fox still did Alien versus Predator, which
yeah.
as cool as an idea as that is, that's a complete bastardization of the other franchise and like Predator not so much,
Mm,
but Alien like that completely ruined, aspects of that franchise completely and with even
yeah.
including like Wayland. So Fox have like done this kind of thing before. And I do think that Black was trying to do something interesting, but it's almost like again Fox have come in and really not trusted enough him in certain ways, or accepted him too much at the beginning and then been like, oh shit, we've made a mistake. We're going to take over rather than let the skilled filmmaker try and fix it himself. Because it does feel like it was kind of taken away from him. Like the thing that you were saying that they were going to do, like all of that stuff with the friendly predators and things, and then like that's a huge aspects to remove. Like in the trailer where you see Trevant Rhodes on the cannon on top of the
Yeah.
tank, it's gone. So there's like whole huge action scenes that have disappeared. It's
Yeah.
insane that, and it must have happened quite quickly, which I guess is why the pacing feels so off because they just couldn't retrofit it that well.
It all stems from the test screening. So I've got a contact which regularly goes through these test screenings, and so I know what the film was very early on, and yeah, it received very negative response from the test screenings with the friendly predators and everything, and they liked the comedy, everything like that, but they hated certain elements of the story. And
Mm.
I know from that contact that Shane Black was at that test screening, speaking to Fox officials, and he did not look best pleased. He looked like a man who was being told off. Um, but the thing is, as well, the thing you got to remember is that you know there's some interesting ideas in there, but they don't work when you analyze them just a tiny bit more. Like
Mm,
for starters, why would a predator take a human skull from a person it's killed because it's proved itself to be stronger than the person that it's killed? What benefit does that person have to the predator at that point? He's murdered him. That doesn't make any sense. The whole, if a
Do you
person
mean in regards
survived,
to the whole Predator franchise, or you mean this movie?
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
it's a
because that's like,
retrofit of the law, isn't it? And they've changed
yeah,
it. But when you compare it to everything else, it doesn't make a goddamn piece of sense. And then you got to think as well, like the characters in this movie just do dumb things. Like Boyd Holbrook, he's got a device that can make himself invisible, and yet he swallows it so he can shit it out later, and then he airmails the top secret predator stuff to his PO box. Mate, you could make yourself invisible, take that with you, make it invisible, and go on a plane. No one would know. What are you doing? And then you let yourself get captured. Who knows you're there? How do they know you're invisible? Use the invisible device. The people in the universe are so dumb, but they know what the device is. They know what the stuff is, but they just don't use it. It doesn't make any sense when you break it down. When you really start to look at it, you're just like, what are you doing? You could just sit on a plane. Go in first class. There's loads of seats empty in first class on regular. You put your feet up.
well, with the idea of having this predator be kind of slightly more humanized and showing sympathy towards the humans as he's there to sort of warn them of this kind of incoming threat, do you think once they've made the predator kind of more friendly, it takes any sense of threat away from this monster who was this kind of ultimate killer in the first one. Because, Ross had pointed out recently with Predator 2, where he wants his arms cut off and he's swinging off the building. It's kind of like this. You don't need to see the Predator at this stage where he's kind of weakened to the point where he's no longer this kind of looming threat over the humans.
I see what you mean, but I'm kind of... People have said that, but I'm also a little bit... a lot of these choices that people are highlighting now, like that, the friendly Predator, he's not that friendly because he does murder like an absolute fuck ton of people. But, sorry, I don't know if I should swear. But, like...
You can do a swear.
He kills like a lot of people, but we've seen it in in Predator 2. Danny Glover doesn't get murdered by a load of predators, and in AVP, they pair up at the end to defeat the Alien Queen. Like we've and those are all canon bits of the film.
They are
unheard of. It's I kind of saw it as, like, they say he's gifting it to people, which is a weird way of saying it, but the idea of the Predators kind of trying to... I sound like I'm being very protective of the film, but I do feel a little bit... I guess I feel a bit protective of the idea of it being like a weird attempt to do stuff, and there's this hyper aggression against the movie at the moment, which feels strange to me when I think that all of the sequels have problems, and this one has... like some of the humor doesn't work, but I feel like it would have been better. But I feel like they were doing the whole Suicide Squad type thing where they try and match up to like Deadpool or a film, where bring in lots of comedy and lots of music or Guardians of the Galaxy. So they've kept all the jokes that are there, but they haven't kept the pacing that makes those jokes land. But they don't want to cut out the bit. So it's like you don't feel that Black is someone who can tell a joke. So they've kept his punchlines, and the whole friendly Predator thing and the way they speak about that character they've kept, but they may have gotten rid of... I just feel like with the pace of the movie, they may have gotten rid of some of the careful, touch that he would have put on making those things work. So it's difficult for me to say. But I do think that the friendly Predator, I don't know, is it that friendly? I mean,
his intent is to help.
Yeah,
so that's what I'm kind of...
It's interesting what Mr. H
coming
said.
from.
I guess that wasn't originally the idea, right? He wasn't trying to help so much as it's like a civil... But then there were friendly predators. I don't know.
It's essentially just a civil war that's going on, and I don't know. I mean, to kind of answer the question that you posed before, does it kind of take some weight away from the character? I think every single movie has failed to realize that if you murder the big threat and you constantly make them bigger and badder, but you murder them at the end of the film, why do I want to watch one of these films ever again? I know what's going to happen. This was the perfect opportunity where where'd you go from here? This upgrade Predator, this ultimate Predator, is the biggest, baddest thing we've ever seen, and he still got killed.
Yeah,
he still got killed. Where'd you go from here now? If they always get killed, and they get killed just with pretty much normal stuff, and now we've got this gift, which is like the ultimate Predator killer. Like, where'd you go? Where'd you go from there? Where's the threat now?
I almost feel they're aiming though towards what... I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the whole like fans saying we need to do this, we need to do that, and I think one of the things that fans kind of always want or say that they want is they want to see tons of predators. They want to, we want to see the Predator homeworld, stuff like that. They always complain that we're ruining the mystery and the mystique and like the character, but then people seem to always want to see more of them and things like that, and the Yokja mythology that goes out on the comics and the books. And I kind of feel that that's what they're moving towards with like the Predator killer. Clearly, the fact that he can kill so many at one time means that the sequel would have been a hell of a lot of predators around him trying to kill him and stuff. So it would be that war film, which personally I don't really want to see. It's interesting that the first one is the only one where technically he didn't kill the Predator. Like the Predator kills itself and blows up everything. It's not found. There's no trace of it. Could be taken by the humans and stuff. And that's the thing that I do think, like you said, all the Predator sequels seem to get wrong, is that they're not... And the great thing about the alien is she kills the alien, but, when they brought that back, well, actually, the Alien Queen is a bigger, badder one, but it was just done well. And it's kind of like...
So it's executed differently.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I guess it's just that the sequels of Alien, there was just a careful touch, even though they've all gone down the pipes as well.
I mean, did the twist at the end take you by surprise? As the large predator is not after Quinn, but instead after his son because of his abilities, because he's on the autistic spectrum and stuff.
I mean, you saw it coming, right? As soon as they said his name, you were like, well, there isn't anything special about this. The whole thing where he could get into the ship, and I mean, it was ridiculous. Like, let's be honest, like the whole autism thing played a little bit better than it could have done, but it still was like not the greatest idea in the world. But it wasn't great. I mean, I don't know what. I guess they were trying. For me, I guess they were trying to create some kind of real, genuine, palpable tension with the idea that a kid's going to get his spine ripped out.
Oh,
never
no.
No?
The script was different than that. He wasn't gonna be killed, mate. Oh no.
Really?
Oh no.
What are you gonna do?
No, he wasn't gonna be
That's
killed.
what I took in the movie. That's because that's how they get people's DNA.
Oh, no,
Well, yeah,
it was just going to be taken, and they downplayed the kid quite a lot because in the script, as the upgrade's dying, they ask him, what are you, kind of thing like that, and he says something like, I'm a warrior, or sort of. He has a translator device on him, not the machine. He has one on him, and so he can talk, and he's like, warrior, and then he points to the kid as he's dying, and he says, you true warrior.
What? Well, that's bollocks, man. That's pretty rubbish. Because in the film, when Quinn points the gun at the Predator and he goes, "What the fuck are you?" and he just before he speaks, he goes, "Oh fuck it," and shoots him. And then they have this kind of weird slow. They slow the footage down as it dissolves into something else.
Oh, it's so bad.
I thought they've cut something here. This is quite a wonky edit, and because before we started recording, I was like discussing, sort of scenes that seemed very obviously cut out, like the dog that helps the kid. Because at the point where the kid goes on the run and he's in that sort of basketball court or whatever, I was getting quite restless. Then I was like, this scene is kind of going on a little bit too long. But his dog comes along. And he tries to. Is it going to help him because it's the new Predator dogs are kind of running around, which do actually look better with their design than the one in Predators. But then you see this pit bull dog, I believe, and he kind of chases after them when they drive off, and then it's kind of gone. And I was like,
yeah, it just vanishes. I remember that shot specifically out the back of the caravan, looking down the street. It's kind of got something in its mouth and it's running.
Yeah.
And then that's it. They never show. That's like a moment you'd at least see it like whimper or something, and they drive away. But it felt
so abrupt.
I think it's because maybe there must have been something in that shot
they couldn't
were
cut
trying
out.
to demonstrate, but they couldn't cut out. But at that point, we're like, we don't have time to show this dog. Like, we've got to get through this film as quickly as possible because we've got so much other plot by the end to fit into it that I kind of felt like even the bit. What was the bit? I don't know if it must have been due to reshoot when they're fighting. The humans at the end are fighting, and the Predator's like, I've enjoyed seeing you kill each other, and they're really going for it. And then all of a sudden, it felt to me a bit weird. It wasn't like a smash cut from one to the other, but it felt quite sudden. The humans just make this very uneasy alliance very quickly, and suddenly Sterling K. Brown and Boyd Holbrook walking past next to each other. And they're like, "We'll take this up later." And I was like, "You were killing each other about 30 seconds ago."
Yeah,
and
that was so right.
Yeah.
That was very obvious, wasn't it? With that kind of change, that shift, as the characters completely just like changed their motivations. But
you said, did you like the dogs then?
I thought dogs are okay.
That was one of the things that I didn't like because I thought that they started off well, and then immediately its job in the film was to pick up things that I couldn't quite tell what they were and bring them to people, but I still couldn't quite tell what they dropped. And that was basically what the dog did.
It started. Didn't it bring someone a gun like later on?
Grenade.
Yeah, it does a couple of things.
No,
that was a bit like.
I only kind of liked them because of the visual design. I thought it actually kind of worked better, like with the sort of the Predator universe, where when in Predators had this kind of weird, kind of like bone structure out of their faces, and it just, I don't know, didn't seem to quite gel when I originally saw that film. But there's one great moment of, like, I'm sure this is Shane Black sort of poking fun at the Predator sort of franchise, where the guy's got the shoulder cannon, it turns to the left, and he looks to the left, and it blows his head off. I thought, now that shows the design flaw of this shoulder cannon, because it's always fired like straight ahead, isn't it? It's never really fired to the left or to the extreme right. So I thought that was quite a clever thing. But it's, as these characters are killed off, he's got the Thomas Jane and the other guy kind of had this kind of bromance going on, but it's not really evident in the film. You know what I mean?
You don't really care about it.
No, it's a shame. It's a real big shame because the characters all really likeable, and I think they kind of all work together. The chemistry's there, but it's just not enough time with them because as we were discussing earlier, about this kind of plot and feeling we're missing stuff. It's like we're given just the basic of this section of dialogue. They've cut out the beginning and an end, just giving us the sort of the basic part to sort of get the story going. So you're kind of missing the connecting bits. Which gives it time to breathe and move along at a good pace. But if you say 2 hours, I think it's just under 2 hours, isn't it?
It's like an hour.
It's 1 hour,
it's an hour and
58
40
minutes.
or something. Oh, really?
1 hour
That's
50. Yeah, I've got the runtime on screen now.
Oh, that's the longest one in the series, because I think they're all about 1 hour 40 minutes, aren't they, or something? The original.
Yeah, which is
1 hour 47 or something.
Which is kind of what you want for a kind of action movie. You know, if it's over 2 hours, you're just like looking at your watch with your bum's gone to sleep. But there's the bit at the end, right? Now we talked about the weapon they get given, right? Which basically, when the scientist puts it on, it's these stupid elaborate guns all come out, and I couldn't stop laughing when it happened. But it was like, you know, when you're a kid and they released various alterations of Batman. There's Batman Returns figures where he's got a laser cannon, he's got a Scooby gear. It's like he's got like a disco version of Batman or something. It was like that. It was like seeing a Kenner toy of Predator where they've just gone completely bonkers and had it with all these silly guns. Now
it was superhero
yeah,
movie.
it was. That's what it comes. It's what it felt
Who
like.
is that for? Who is that for? You got this R-rated movie, and then you end like a superhero movie. Who is that for? Because it's not for the people that have just been watching the movie, because they're not kids.
No,
like what?
I mean,
anyway,
what were you guys expecting? What were you guys expecting it to be then? And because
I mean, everyone was expecting Arnold Schwarzenegger or something to come.
Yeah, he pops up
It
like
was
a
going to be
cigar.
something. It was like coffin shaped almost. Like that suit did not take as much space in that pod as it needed to. Like I didn't expect that Arnold Schwarzenegger was going to come out, but I expected it was going to be a thing. I don't know, a person, like a creature or something. It should have been
Adrian Brody. He's come back. They've brought him back. They've brought him back with the new tech, and he's just like, "Who's next? You know, come bring it on." You know, so that would have made us.
I know, but it's funny you bring up like Adrian Brody, because it sounds like I'm being really harsh or we're being quite harsh, but I think one of the things that, even though I don't think they set up the people very well, and the ending was bad, I think that in terms of the other Predator movies, except the first one, I thought that, you know, the jokes landed sometimes still pretty well. There were some bits that did make me laugh a lot. The bit where, you know, they're like, "Where are you going to go? This is why you should go help my husband. He's a great soldier. He's this, he's that. He's got this many tours of duty. He might be a bad husband, but he's a great soldier." And they pause and go, "Well, he sounds like he can look after himself." And they just sit there. I was like, that's a good joke, and it was played well. And I enjoyed the chemistry to a point enough to enjoy the film. And I guess that for me was what the ending screwed up, was then you don't feel the deaths the way you do in the first film. You don't, you know, it happens so quickly, and then that ending is just, first of all, there are humans alive and the predators are all dead, and then, like Mr. H said, this thing doesn't owe anything to the series at this point. We don't get the sense that there is a civil war. We don't get, all we know is they're coming because of global warming, and so I guess that's what it's for. There's going to still be an invasion, but you don't feel the impending sense of invasion. I don't know. It's I guess it's just the idea of it aiming for teenagers again. You know, it's the same thing they did with the AVP films. Like, they're aiming for the younger audience and trying to please fans by having the possibility of a war film in the future.
Well, yeah,
which is a shame.
Because as you were saying earlier about, you know, the fans wanting to see sort of the Predator homeworld, we've kind of been shown it only in a few glimpses in the AVP 2 sequel, which I thought looked all right. I mean, it wasn't, you know, it was for something that they had to make up for that movie. It seemed to work. I mean, I think they kind of borrowed a couple of elements from the first AVP, was sort of to create this world. But even in Predators, you only kind of see the planet from a distance. So there is
which
this.
I think is the best way to do it.
Well, yeah, it's maintaining a mystery, isn't there? Because once you kind of go into the backstory of these characters, that it no longer becomes interesting, because you just kind of spoilt this kind of mystery, like they're doing now with the Joker. It's like, we don't do we need to know his background to all this, you know? It's usually best left untold, so it creates.
But the thing is, I guess, is like,
character.
if you look at the Joker of the Dark Knight, the one we all remember as one of the greatest villains of all time now, the only thing you can do to make people not say that is to make a good movie. Like, you know, people were terrified of the Joker before it came out. They were like, how can you do the Joker again? Jack Nicholson was the greatest villain performance of all time. You know, you've got all these classics that have looked at it. He's not going to do it right. He's a teen heartthrob. And because that film was so good, instantly killed it. And like, that can happen with the Predator. I think the Predator has been played out at this point. Like, same as Alien, the more they expand the mythology, the more people aren't going to like it, because these creatures weren't created with a mythology behind them. Like, it wasn't Lord of the Rings. They were horror movies. A single enemy that had a very single purpose, which was to kill humans. And they did it really well, and the trophy hunting kind of made sense in some ways, and the alien had this simple biology, and it's the more they reveal the mythology, it kind of kills it. And I just don't think that this film, in the end, by even making another Predator movie, unless you really nail it the way they did with Dark Knight, you're never going to be happy with it. It's basically like it's an impossible task to make a good Predator film at this point.
That's interesting, because I had written down, what would you expect for a sequel with this?
I don't expect one. They're not going to. It's going to Disney now. Disney will either sell it off. They're not going to put money behind this. I did a video where I did like a how to save, or basically how to save the Predator franchise, where I kind of did my own pitch for a movie. And I mean, this has to just be wiped clean, because this movie, it introduces things where you're never going to satisfactorily move forward from. So you have to just wipe it. And one of the things which no filmmaker has ever done, and it doesn't make any goddamn piece of sense, just move it into the future. Move it into the future. Because I know everyone wants a period piece where they move it into the past, but that's even more like unappealing and uninteresting, because you got to remember the Predators are still going to be high tech. So where's the threat at that point? A human's not a threat at that point. Yeah, I mean, you could write some convoluted way where a human wins and all this kind of crap, but at the end of the day, you move it forward into the future where people have advanced weaponry and they're kind of on an even keel. Or in my pitch, I did it as you set it on the Predator homeworld, and they've had a civil war and they've basically blown themselves to shit, and they're almost caveman style. So you subvert the genre, the expectations, and you flip the genre on its head. You have humans as the high tech ones and the Predators as the cavemen. You do something like that. That's how you move the franchise forwards, and then you can bring it back to something really simple, but again, still set in the future. But otherwise, you can't. Where'd you go from this?
There is one thing I'll bring up that I kind of have been thinking about recently, and I do think the only thing that I would potentially do, personally, and I think you're seeing it right now, because this conversation's happened with another franchise before this, with Halloween. Like, Halloween had shat itself by the end of that series. Like, if you watch like H20 or something like that, like they're Halloween Resurrection, they are terrible movies, probably worse than any of these Predator films. And I think if you went back, and I don't know if it will ever happen, and did Old Dutch the way they're doing Old Laurie in Halloween, and it go back to that, but he's been living after that, because at the end of the great thing about the first Predator, which I think they've ruined, is that the end of the first Predator is the idea is no one was going to believe Dutch. There was nothing left. That's what the Predator sees to. So if you were to do what they're doing with Halloween and wipe the slate clean and go back to just the first movie in this, and it's a guy who's telling people, like, this thing exists. I saw it. No one believes me, but I've been waiting for it to come back because I know somewhere it will, and I want to prove that I'm not mental or whatever. Or they want another Predator wants to kill him or something. I don't know what it would be. That might be a bit rubbish. But at least then, seeing Dutch again, and Arnold Schwarzenegger being the better actor that he is now, and he's kind of proven in films like Aftermath and stuff, versus an old warrior in an interesting setting. I don't know what that would be, like a forest or something, and it's just a small, like the way they're doing with Rambo now with Sylvester Stallone. You could do it on a lower budget now with someone like Blumhouse or something, and it wouldn't be the greatest movie in the world, but it would be fun, and it would feel like that original, but be different enough to actually make sense. And returning to Dutch give people a reason to watch it.
I think that idea would probably restore some respect back in the franchise, sort of credibility again. I think
Halloween's proving it.
Sorry. Yeah. I mean, both those ideas, guys, are pretty cool. I mean, it's like with the AVP films, they could have done the second one, boom, straight in the future. You've got the Marines everyone wants to see with the pulse rifles, and have a big battle on this ginormous Sulaco kind of ship. That's it. You could have done it. You can do it for like 50 million or less. Just have, it doesn't not be extensive CGI. You know what I mean? So there's so many opportunities there for them to do these kind of crazy fan requested things, so to speak, but they just kind of go in this weird direction with stuff.
But the thing is, as well, Fox just Fox, they're so stupid. Stacey Snider at Fox, you are a moron. You put your faith, you put all of your eggs in the baskets of people that have been associated with the first in the franchise. Like Ridley Scott, he crapped himself all over and produced Alien Covenant. What a pile of wank. And then you've done it again with Shane Black. He appeared in the first one. Yes, he had some, he peppered in some jokes and stuff like that, but it wasn't his idea. It was John and Jim Thomas. And again, you put him on board with this, thinking that he would reinvigorate the franchise, and he shat himself, and that's what we got with The Predator. Stacey Snider came out in an interview and said categorically, "Yeah, I received the script for The Predator, and it read nothing like a Predator movie." And I thought, yeah, I'm going to greenlight that. You fucking mental.
Or maybe she thought. What? Maybe she thought that it was like because it was different. Let's do it. And
well, look what came out of it.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
It's all well and good saying, "Oh, well, basically justifying our actions," but the end result, the proof's in the pudding. It was a ridiculous idea. Ridiculous. I read nothing like a Predator film. I'm going to greenlight it and give it $100 million. Yeah.
Well, maybe we'll see a kind of director's cut. I mean, if Disney obviously are buying Fox, I mean, there probably will be a kind of a separate label for them to do adult movies. I mean, they've done with Touchstone, they were Disney owned, so
Miramax.
Was it Miramax? No, they were Dimension, wasn't they?
No, they did two Touchstone. Yeah, they had. I think didn't they have both though? Maybe.
I thought they had Miramax, but maybe
they definitely had Touchstone. I think. Yeah, I'm trying to think what. I don't know. The Disney merger, I think, is going to be. I think the more realistic idea of something like that might be that Disney sell it, or they keep it for other things. But they're gonna, they'll pull up what they did with Friday the 13th a few years ago with Paramount. When they swapped it for things that'll happen at some point with this franchise because there won't be any value left in it. And then maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing to get it away from Fox, give it to interesting filmmakers like Blumhouse or something like that, the way they're doing Spawn and they're doing Halloween at the moment. Maybe that's what this needs, because it can't be scary anymore. They're probably not going to be able to get the money to do the mythology side that people want. Maybe it is just going back to an intense action thriller with a little bit of a sense of humor. That's the way you do it. That's all I could really see is even possibly happening now, because regardless of how much I like or don't like this movie, it ain't going to do very well. We're probably not going to see a sequel with, Boyd Holbrook flying around in a Predator suit, samurai thing, whatever it is.
Fucking Iron Predator.
Sadly. I just want to say quickly that, again, I don't think people should be too put off by everything that's being said, just simply because if you want to go to the cinema and see a movie with... What I found surprising was, the sense of humor in this movie isn't particularly politically correct. No, it's not. It's got, and it has got a lot of rough edges, but it's kind of nice to see that in the age of films being sanded away into this kind of very homogenous shape that's a bit, you kind of can work out what's going to happen. In this movie, like it or not, you don't always know what's going to happen, and it is violent and brash, politically incorrect, and you can have a good time of it. Like the screening I went to, they gave us a cup. They gave us free beers. We sat there. We watched it. We had to see it in 3D, which is not the way to see this film whatsoever. So
it was awful, wasn't it? It's so bad. Everything was still kind of doubling up still when I saw it. It was bad.
But other than that, I would say it does have some value. It's better than AVP Requiem. I kind of would probably watch it again more than I'd watch Predators, because I'll maybe notice little things I didn't see before and I'll laugh more. And there is value in it somewhere. Shane Black hasn't made the worst film ever made.
No, people are reacting that way though, which I find very amusing. It's the worst film I've ever seen. It's like you clearly haven't watched enough movies. But sometimes it's kind of an emotional response. People love the franchise and they've seen a movie, it's not lived up to expectations and it's upset them, so they kind of lash out on social media. But I think, as I say, it's not a terrible film by any means. There were parts of it I enjoyed, and there's obviously many issues with it, as we've pointed out, but I probably will see it again when it comes out to Blu-ray or something, or 4K, just to sort of see it with kind of fresh eyes after so many months. But I won't be returning to the cinema anytime soon, but I think I probably it's easily better than the AVP film, so It's got that going for it, you know. So it's not a total write-off, but it's
small wins.
Yeah.
I would recommend it though. Like as much as I've poo-pooed it, I would still say go and watch it because I had fun with it. Is it the greatest film ever made? Absolutely not. But is it fun up until a certain point? Yes. And it is also, I found the humour to be funny. I don't know whether that's British humour being...
Yeah, I laughed a lot.
See, I found a lot of Americans have hated it. A lot of my American subscribers have hated it. So I don't know whether it leans more towards the UK-based humour than it does the USA-based humour. But at the end of the day, I had fun with it. I laughed out loud in parts. And it's the bloodiest Predator movie you'll see. So, I mean, I would say go and watch it, if for the spectacle alone.
But aren't you fascinated by the idea, and this is the thing, that somewhere in Fox there is a lot of this movie that's completely different with friendly predators and the whole action scenes, and I don't know if we will ever see that, but in 10 years to come, that's what this movie might end up being remembered for, is the idea that there is going to be such a unique cut of this that no one will see other than those test screenings and the few people who worked on it, which is actually the one thing that might keep it alive.
I think if you think back to the 80s and when people heard about these kind of films that were heavily cut up and those deleted scenes will always be lost forever, those films did eventually get released with it as a sort of director's cut or extended cut. So the opportunity to see that original version, I think, will probably come about, but not as early as I may predict, like with a Blu-ray release. You know,
the one thing that you could do in the past was if you cut a film and you change the edit later, you could just recut in that celluloid, and you know they've done it with the work print of Evil Dead 2 and stuff. The problem now is I don't know how close they were to finished, but it's rare that you're going to see the end of that because they're not going to pay to finish the effects, and they're not going to want to release an effects-filled film without those effects finished. So if there's like all these sequences with Predator hybrids running around that were CG, there is a very small chance that might have been done, but if it wasn't finished, you probably will never see it because they're not going to put money into it, which is a shame. And there are films that we still like. There are bits of Friday the 13th they cut out because it was too violent. I think part 5 and 6 maybe. And there are whole kills in that have never been seen again and probably never will be. And this might end up like that. It is a bit of a shame.
Yeah, because it would just end up being like, if they do include it, it'd just be like pre-vis kind of effects, and any they may just end up being just deleted scenes as an extra feature, but as within being in the final cut, that will probably be a no-no. But I mean, I think if they just put in a few more bits of extra dialogue to sort of flesh out some of these scenes, they could probably improve it somewhat to give it to make it a sort of a 3 out of 5 kind of film.
I mean, it happened with Kingdom of Heaven, so who knows?
Yeah, and then director's cut was far superior. You know, I thought
wonderful film.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Well, everyone, that is the end of the spoiler discussion. Remember to check out Rossatron's and Mr. H's channels. If you haven't already, you can find links to their channels below. Okay, everyone, that's it for now. Take care and goodbye.